If you've ever felt like life has hit you with something that you weren't sure you'd come back from, this episode is going to hit home for you. Today, we're joined by Sifu Karl Romain, who is a martial arts world champion, Hall of Famer, certified master coach, and best-selling author. He's been featured on Oprah, Dr. Oz, numerous radio and talk shows, and is the host of the Overcoming Obstacles podcast, helping people break through challenges in every area of life. Karl's story is the definition of an underdog. After a devastating accident nearly ending his martial arts career, Karl came back and became the 1990 W.A.K.O world champion, and to do so much more in business and life since. In this episode, you'll learn what it really takes to rebuild yourself when things fall apart, how to turn personal pain into higher purpose, and why motivation alone can't change your life, but mastering your inner world just might. It's an honor to welcome Sifu Karl Romain to Great American Underdog. Karl, how you feeling today?
I'm excited to be here, Ron. I can't wait to share with everybody, and thank you for having me on.
It's an absolute pleasure, man. After learning some things about you, definitely some parallels between my life and yours, but there are things that you've experienced that I think the audience will benefit from, and of course, I can learn from always, which is one of the benefits of, as you know, running a podcast is the constant learning. But take us back to the moment in time where everything kind of changed for you. You know, who were you before this accident that happened? What exactly happened, and who did you become after it?
Well, it goes even further back than that, if that's okay. Uh, from the time I was a child, I started studying martial arts. My dad took me to see my first Bruce Lee movie at a drive-in theater. I know I'm dating myself here, but I got really excited after that. I was like, wow, I love what he did on screen, and I just want to learn that. And I remember being at one of my friend's house. His brother was in the backyard doing all these crazy moves. And I'd seen martial arts before. I said, I'd never seen nothing like that. What is that? And he said, it's Kung Fu. And I said, oh, that's what Bruce Lee does. I need to learn that. Where'd you learn it? He said, hey, I'm learning it down at the local Y. So like most kids, I went home and I begged my mom to enroll me until she finally gave in. And so she did. She gave in. And I remember thinking in my first class, I will never quit. I absolutely fell in love with it. My first teacher was a big man. He was 6'5", 250, but moved like a lightweight. And I was so impressed by him and so in awe, just taking it back, that I was just like, this is amazing. And so throughout my high school years, I continued to train while doing other sports. But Kung Fu always stuck with me. And by the time I was a senior in high school, I needed to figure out my life, like most people, right? Now, being an immigrant, my family came here from the island of Haiti in 1973. They had this idea: doctor, lawyer, counter engineer, which I wanted no parts of. So I said, you know what? I'll make them happy. I'll go to art school. I'd been a pretty good artist. I'd sold some paintings in an art gallery in high school. I figured, you know what? Man, I don't know much about it, but I'll pursue this as a life, right? So I remember being in an art test. I think Parsons or Pratt, one of these schools, and have my portfolio and everything with me, and I'm doing the drawings and everything else. And I just stop for a moment. I look around, and I'm feeling like I don't fit in. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but in that in that moment where I felt like I didn't fit in, it was really strong. Sometimes we get these feelings inside of us that are so strong we can't ignore. And it was so strong that I decided to pack my stuff up and just leave. And I remember the person in the room, the monitor person, was like, "Where are you going?" It's like, I'm sorry, I got to go home." And I left. I went home, and my parents were like, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I don't know yet." And it took me a little bit. And then I said one day, "I want to be a martial arts world champion." And of course, they thought I lost my mind. That time, people weren't making careers out of martial arts, right? It was a very,
Yeah, and it wasn't the safe move
it wasn't
either
very,
in their mind.
no, not at all, right? Like, they didn't come to this country, work so hard for me to do this, right? And so I declared it. I actually put it in my high school yearbook. I will be a martial arts world champion by age 22. I will do some TV and stuff, and I'll have a couple of schools. That was it. That was the goal, right? So I started training, competing, get ranked in the top 25. I'm doing pretty good, or so I thought. And I wasn't aggressive enough in my mind. Like, I wasn't pursuing it as hard as I could, right? Then one day I'm driving to work, and it's early morning, and I get cut off by another driver. I lose control of the car. My car spins out across two lanes, hits the divider. I hit the divider so hard, the guy behind me thought I was going to go onto the other side of traffic. And that was the day I received the news that I suffered injuries in a car accident that would prevent me from ever competing in martial arts again. I had injured my spine. And so for a year, I was in a neck brace and I went to tournaments watching other people win. And that's where the fire was being lit. And I remember one day being in the city with a friend, and I was asking him, I said, I got this thing, it's ringing in my head. My life isn't going anywhere. I want to do this martial arts thing. And I really believe I could win by age 22. And he said something to me that day. He says, if you believe you can do it, you need to go for it. And that was all the permission I need. The next day, the neck brace came off. I made a phone call to a friend in Boston and I started training with him. I just got on the path. I had a chiropractor who was working with me. And to make a long story short, by age 22, I represented the U.S. team in international competition and made my dream of becoming a world champion come true. And what I tell people is that my passion led me to my purpose, right? My passion for martial arts and winning the world championships taught me a very valuable lesson. You see, the first part of the story is really all about me. Like, it was all about me and what I wanted to accomplish. But after winning, people were sharing their story with me about what inspired them about what I did and their goals, their dreams that they gave up on and how they're inspired to pursue it, which helped me to realize God saved my life so I can inspire people to live a life of their dreams. And that's what I try to do every day now.
You know, there's so much in your story right there that like resonates with me as a person, but I think that a lot of people out there, if they know what they want early on in life, they usually get there a little bit quicker.
Mhm.
You had that, you had the courage to decide to walk out of that art room and say, this is not, although you're talented, although gifted enough to be there in the first place, right?
Mhm.
This is not what I really want to do.
Yeah.
And to trust your gut enough and your intuition enough to go and make that jump and then go through your accident and still be so tied to the dream, like in your video Impossible Dream, which made me think of Luther Vandross, of course. I was like, what a great story in terms of being able to overcome something that other people would have maybe stopped them in tracks, but your why, it sounds like, was so strong that there was nothing that was going to derail you at that time. And then
Yeah.
you just had to give yourself permission. And that came from talking to somebody else who said, you know what, you can do this. And then you allowed yourself to step into who you were meant to become ultimately
Yeah.
because you stayed true to your purpose.
And walking out of that room was super hard because I knew what it meant. There were consequences for that action. My dad was very clear about like what he would support and what he would not support. Right. So walking out, I kind of walked out knowing that I better make this work because he's not going to endorse this. He's not going to support this. This isn't going to be a cakewalk. If I want this, this is something I need to go after and get. And there's something to be said about that, right? Like sometimes it's nice to have support. It's nice to have people around us who encourage us. It's also sometimes important to take that responsibility for ourselves and say, you know what? If I want it, I better go after it.
If it's going to be, it's up to me, as
Yeah.
the phrase goes, right?
Right.
So you're 100% right. You got to be willing enough to step into that feeling of no one else is going to do this for me. Nobody's coming to save me. And if I really want this and this is my dream, I have to continue to move forward through this adversity.
Yeah.
And you and I, me with Great American Underdog, you with overcoming obstacles and what you do on a daily basis to impact others, your story speaks directly to that. So I'm curious, like what mentally, like emotionally and physically, like what did it take in terms of getting back up to go and become that world champion in martial arts with W.A.K.O? Like outside of hearing from getting permission from your coach, what else was it that, I guess kept you moving towards that? Was it just still tied to that original dream that you had? And was there anything else that came into play along the road?
A lot of things came into play, but first and foremost, I think faith. Faith that's not tested in the fire is not real, right? How do you know you have faith? Well, you got to step out on the water a little bit. It's going to take some courage. It's going to take, really trusting that God's got you in this and taking some risks, taking some chances, right? And knowing that at the end of the day, whatever happens, it's all going to be okay. Right. And so for anybody out there who's listening right now and you're in that space of uncertainty. And I think a lot of people today probably are, right? I want you to really take a full accounting of yourself, who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, and think about what it is that you are meant to do. And if you're really committed to that purpose, I want you to think about, well, what is the first step I need to take? For me, it was finding the right people to support me to say, you know what, if you think you can, go for it. Then it was finding the right chiropractor who said, yeah, I believe in you and I can do this. I can help you. Because throughout my training, as I'm making the comeback, I'm re-injuring myself, right? In that chiropractic office several days, several times. Yeah, so much so that eventually he just decided, you know what, I'm just going to sponsor you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna put him on my robe or whatever the case is, and make sure that they get the credit they deserve.
That's right. So whatever that step is for you, what is your first step? And decide on that. They say a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So what is your first step? And how can you take that first step today? But without faith, nothing can be accomplished. Right.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that people, like, to your point, they in today's world especially, they lose faith very easily because you mentioned people. The people that they're around a lot of times are people that are naysayers because they couldn't do it in their own lives.
Mhm.
And when you surround yourself with people that are not going to share in your vision, not directly in the same uh, things that you want, but at least have the mindset of, if you believe that you can go do it, I'll support you 100% in your endeavors. When you have that kind of group around you compared to, why would you want to go do that? Not, you see how many people actually make it? You think you're really going to be one of those,
Mhm.
right? I
Yeah.
think that weighs on people, especially over time, and consistently hearing that messages from people closest to them.
Yeah. And a lot of those people want to keep you safe. Maybe they did try and they failed. Whatever their reason is for wanting to keep you safe, that's their reason. However, you need to go out and make some friends that will support you in the right way to accomplish their dreams. Right now, we live in an age of information. There's nothing that you can't learn or find out. There's nothing that you can't get mentoring for, right? There's all kinds of courses and coaching, and it's phenomenal what's going on right now. So if you really want to make it, there's almost no excuse for you not to, right? Except that you're not trying or you don't, or you refuse to try, right?
Or maybe to your point before, they don't have the connection to the bigger vision or the purpose to go take even that first step because they feel like it's insurmountable or unfeasible for whatever reason, whether they're being told that or they're telling themselves that, right? Because as you know, your
Mhm.
thoughts become your reality.
That's right.
We filter everything through what Brian Tracy calls that filter of belief in your brain, where information comes in and we decide ultimately if it's good or bad. So if you're deciding that the information coming in is not going to benefit you when really you could, you're not going to be willing and able to actively listen.
Right. Thoughts are so powerful. I mean, they determine everything. In my book, Unbreakable, I ask a question. The question is, who are you being? We're always in the process of becoming something. But that person that we want to become has values and attributes and knowledge and skills. Are you being that person now? Like if I were thinking about becoming a world champion today, well, who would I have to be? I would have to get up in the morning and I'd have to train and I'd have to eat a certain way and sleep at a certain time and discipline myself a certain way, right? I want to embody the person I want to become. So when you're thinking about this process, who are you being? Are you being the person you want to become?
Right. Is your lifestyle, your habits, your thoughts, your behaviors, is that all moving you towards that person you want to become? And
Right.
recently I actually heard something from Steve Harvey where he talks about your passion and your gift. And a lot of times people get the two confused, or their passion and their gift are the same, or they're totally different. And it's like you got to live within your gift. God put a gift in all of us.
Mhm.
And it's up to us to uncover what that gift is and then live within that gift. And sometimes it might be your passion, it might not be, but you have to start, like you said, being that person. So if you have future pace yourself as someone you want to become, are you looking at your everyday life and saying, am I living within my gift? Am I doing the
Mhm.
things that are going to bring my gift maybe more to life and bring me closer to that person I believe I want to become? And
Yeah.
then sometimes, Carl, as you know, like, who you want to become might be a product of other people around you and not really who
Who you
you
want.
really want to be or who you are, right? Could
Yeah,
you maybe speak on that a little?
absolutely. And I think what's interesting too about what you're saying, right? You're talking about the quote by Steve Harvey about living within your gifts. And as you start to pursue your God given purpose, you're going to find other gifts. And one gift is going to lead you to another gift. It's like Christmas and unwrapping all the time. You know, when I first became a martial arts world champion, for me, I was just an athlete, right? I was like, okay, I'm just this guy. I love martial arts and I'm just doing my thing. But suddenly I'm being invited to go speak. And my first speaking engagement was at the Waldorf Astoria. I'll never forget this. I'm speaking to the heads of DMV and motor vehicle companies. Governor Cuomo, the first Governor Cuomo at the time in New York, put me on 200 billboards throughout the state of New York for a campaign called Even World Champions Need Seatbelts, right? So now I'm being asked to speak. So I'm sharing my story. Now I'm a public speaker. Okay, this was stage one. Then I get invited to do TV and radio shows, stage two. But again, I have no experience with this. So I'm learning as I go, but it's evolving. It is changing me. It's transforming me. And then I decide, you know what? I'm going to write books. Well, now suddenly I'm an author. Then I become a bestseller. Like one thing keeps leading to the other. And then I become a life coach, and that was all from actually doing radio and TV, made me become a life coach. I remember my agent came to me one day and he says, you do great work and you talk about a lot of great things, but you should really get certified as a life coach. I said, oh, okay. If you think I should, I'll do that. And then I did.
What's so interesting to what you're saying, Carl, too, is like, um, you you didn't necessarily decide to go the coaching route. It found you
Right.
through the process that you put yourself through by following your purpose. Is that right?
That's 100% right. I remember my first private student was a multimillionaire going on his fifth divorce. And as I'm training him at the time, he's asking me all this stuff. He's sharing with me all this. And I'm like, I'm not equipped for this. What do I know about it? I'm just a young kid. I'm an athlete, right? Like, I don't know about life like this. And so it made me then start pursue life coaching and going to Tony Robbins and all these other Les Brown and all these guys and start to learn, right? Because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, well, you have to be willing to first step out and learn it. I had somebody recently who, was asking for help from me, and then I sent him some podcasts, and he kind of balked at listening. And I said, well, you know what? I'm not going to take that personally as much as maybe he's just not in either enough pain yet, or there hasn't been that aha moment for him to happen to turn around, but he's going to have to find it on his own. He asked for help. He started the first step, but
Yep.
then he's got to go the next step deeper to be willing to learn from other people.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately how you grow is we learn from each other.
Yeah. But that's a great first step is just asking for help, just
Yeah.
asking. Then
A
you
lot
got
of people don't
to,
even do that.
right. Then once the
Yeah.
help comes, you have to receive it. And sometimes it doesn't come the way you think it's going to come.
Right, exactly. Even from becoming a world champion in martial arts, Carl, and then becoming a coach, like I'm curious because I use a lot of boxing analogies in the business coaching that I do with selling professionals. And I'm curious on the philosophies and strategies from martial arts. Like, how much do you use stuff from martial arts to teach people in the coaching side of your life?
Every day. Martial arts is such a great analogy for life. There's so many things that we learn in martial arts about discipline and focus and surrender, overcoming fear and challenges. It's a perfect fit for life coaching. For me, it's like a living, breathing thing. It's not just like something I do in the four walls of a martial arts school.
Yeah, and I feel that way even, like, with boxing as an art where it's like, the science of it and the longevity piece, right? Like, always staying in there because you've always got something to learn, and especially now as I've gotten older, learning and working with the younger guys and gals that are coming into the sport, like, I absolutely love that environment and that element. I'm curious, what's one mindset you believe for martial arts that most people overlook but would honestly change the way that they would move through life if they allowed themselves to learn it?
Apply the right strategy. Right? Think about it. If you're in the ring and you're getting waffled, it's because you're using the wrong strategy, right? And the minute you apply the right strategy, what happens? You turn it around. And how many times in martial arts or combat sports have we seen a fighter who's getting walloped suddenly change the strategy and they end up winning?
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
apply.
I've been that person, and I'm sure you have too. I remember when I had my Golden Gloves final match and I kept walking in with straight punches, and the guy I was fighting was a little bit shorter, and he started to time me with an overhand right.
Mhm.
And I walked into at the end of the third round, like 3 overhand rights back to back to back. It was the end
Wow.
of the fight, and I had done enough
Wow.
to win. But, like, if the fight had continued and I didn't adjust, who knows what could have happened. But, yeah, I also am curious too, Carl, is like, I tell people a lot from boxing, calm in a state of chaos.
Mm.
So many people come into boxing and they think it's a tough man sport, or, you have to be the most aggressive person, or if you're the strongest person, you're going to obviously win. And there's so many misconceptions around that. I'm curious, like, what do you think about the calm in a state of chaos thing, uh, in terms of a concept for applying to everyday life as well?
100%. The way you breathe is the way you respond. All right. The way you breathe is the way you respond. If you breathe like you're anxious, you're going to feel more anxious. If you breathe calmly, you're going to feel more calm. If you breathe like you're confident, you're going to show confidence, right? And if you want clarity of mind, then proper breathing is essential. We know that breathing is essential for life, but it's also essential for your emotions and the state of mind you find yourself in. So if you want to change your state of mind, focus on how you're breathing, and you'll see some instant transformations happen.
That's so interesting. So would you say just taking a second, like let's just say you start to feel pressure from an outside source, taking a second to just do some deep breathing to readjust and reset your focus and your emotions?
Absolutely. In my work as a mental health coach, I see it all the time. People come to session and they're upset and they're speaking to me about whatever challenges they're going through. And I say, hey, let's take a mindfulness moment. And I'll take them through a breathing exercise. And suddenly they feel a lot more calmer. They're able to speak more clear. They're so much more aware of what they're feeling and they're able to share at a deeper level. Right. So you can really just transform your state of mind simply by breathing differently.
That's so incredible because it just gives people the opportunity to now take the pressure off themselves. It's like, I'm using just boxing analogies because I know you understand. I had lost the semifinals of Diamond Gloves in 2015 because I believe of that reason and not being calm in the chaos. I had gone into the fight with that kind of bully mentality where I was able to bulldoze people in the past and ran into somebody who was a little bit more skilled of a boxer. Shout out Garrett Dugan. And it's because we're still friendly to this day,
That's
believe it or not.
awesome.
And you might believe that.
Yeah, I do.
So, um, I walked in super tense, throwing bombs, and by the third round, I gassed myself because I was too tight and not
Right.
relaxed enough. And
That's
that was
right.
such a big learning curve for me in life in general, to just stay calm because it ultimately led to my demise of losing the fight and getting dropped with a body shot. Although I got back up and walked towards the ref, stumbled towards the ref, he ended the fight. I still um, learned a valuable lesson, and you see the sign over my shoulder. Sometimes you win, and sometimes you learn.
Mm,
So that calmness I think is such a great approach to life, and what you just mentioned with the breathing is so important to just change your emotional state and your ability to think.
absolutely. I mean, if you think about the moments when you feel the most tense, you're probably not breathing. Like even right now, if you just hold your breath for a second and try to move, notice the tension you feel in your body. It's not natural. And the minute you start to breathe calmly and what we say in Chinese martial arts, the dantian, the lower abdomen, right? The 2 inches below the navel, when you get that deep diaphragmatic breath, suddenly your body starts to relax, your muscles are relaxed, and you're able to move a lot freer. So
Yeah, and I can feel that even just in the way that you're talking. Would you say uh, that is one of the most misunderstood parts of overcoming obstacles in life? Like, is that, I guess, where people get it wrong is they don't stop long enough to breathe and just slow it down?
because it's so hard. Yeah, like I never want to oversimplify things and make people think like, oh, I've got it all together. But I could tell you in my moments of stress, when I really feel the pressure, and I think we've all felt that, like going through COVID and different things like that, I have to stop and remind myself, first of all, that I'm not in control, God's in control. Second of all, breathe. Take a moment, just step back, go for a walk, breathe. And suddenly I feel a little bit better. And then I start to, focus on that, right? And as I focus on that, I feel calmer. And as I feel calmer, I start to say, okay, let me take this from a different place. Okay, what can I do? Sometimes you don't have everything you need, right? Sometimes you can't do everything you want to do, but you got to work with what you currently possess. And a lot of times that question of who am I being right now will help you to answer like what you need to do, right? Because you got to work with who you are, right? And who you are in most cases is more than enough to get what you need done if you realize that.
Yeah, well, it's that change of the mindset again that happens from breathing, but also I think a lot of people I always say problem focused versus solution oriented. If
Hmm.
you're focused on the problems, you're going to get problems
Yeah.
and you're going to feel like somebody that's got to constantly put out fires. But when obstacles arise and you say, okay, how can I navigate this? What's the best way I can navigate this with the resources I currently have? Meaning yourself, the people that care about you around you, all these other things, right? That can
Yeah.
help guide you through. But if your mindset is focused on the problem and not the potential for solutions, it's so hard to overcome, anything in life.
And some problems aren't meant to be overcome. Listen, we got to embrace the storm as much as we embrace the sunlight, right? And sometimes when you're in the storm, that's when you do your biggest period of growth, right? Maybe we don't have to overcome everything think we need to overcome, but we need to learn how to work within it or work with it, learn how to keep moving forward in that moment, right? Figure out how to paddle the boat so we keep moving forward, even though it feels like we're going backwards.
Yeah, like you just said, like going through the storm rather than going around it. And even though it's uncomfortable, it's what's going to bring you onto the other side, closer to who you're looking to become. And it's so interesting that so much of our conversation has turned into like talking about who you're becoming ultimately, rather than overcoming just obstacles. Because, like you just said, those obstacles sometimes are put in front of us by God, especially when, or the universe, whatever you believe in, um, that are coming from a place of what you're asking for. Because if you're asking for strength, I feel like God in the universe is gonna give you challenges, you know this. Like, if you're asking for certain levels of success, well, there's a filter. There's a
It comes
filter you're gonna have to go through,
That's right.
and it's not gonna be comfortable.
No, it's never comfortable. And that's okay. And that's kind of like what I meant. And, I think we like to feel comfortable. But think about somebody who's comfortable. How hard are they pushing? All right. Think about the guys in the gym that feel like, oh, I'm good where I'm at. Are they even in the gym? Right.
Yeah, you went to the gym, but how intense was the workout?
That's
Like,
the
how
part.
hard did you push to?
Yeah. Right. But then you got somebody who's hungry and determined, and how hard are they pushing? And how often in the combat world have we seen this, right? The guy who's hungry to get the title, he gets the title, and suddenly, like, okay, right?
Mhm.
It's just
Well, I
not.
use always the Mike Tyson Buster Douglas analogy. Like when hard work doesn't work hard, when talent doesn't work hard, hard work beats talent. And
That's right.
Buster Douglas, his why in that fight was so much bigger than Tyson's.
So much bigger, right? It was for his mom.
Yeah.
He put it all on the line, right?
Yeah. So, it's just so true. Like, being in that comfortable state is not going to get you the desired outcome you want if you stay there a little too long. It's okay to sit back and reflect on things, and be appreciative and grateful. I think that living in that state of gratitude every day is so important, to realize what you do have. But if you just stay complacent and comfortable, you're really not going to be able to get where you ultimately could get to or realize, your maximum potential. How
Yeah.
much, Carl, do you think, going for your potential in life, how important is that to you? Like maximizing it in all the different areas? And do you think that that is a, a faulty endeavor for people or something that everybody should be doing?
I think everybody's different, and you have to know what's right for you. In one of my academies, we have a slogan, education for life, because we believe at every stage of life, you can grow and you can learn, right? But what is the right level of challenge for you is going to be determined by you, not what anybody else thinks. For some of us, we're in our 50s and maybe we feel like, you know what, I've had all the challenge I want to have and I want to have a little easier, more gentle life. And here I am at 57, pushing myself to do as much as I possibly can, right? I've also been in the room, watched people take their last breath, and that changes you. It changes you tremendously. And, you know, you realize how short our time is here. And for me, I want to make the most that I can with the time that I have.
Yeah, I love that. And, you had shared with me in the past that, you're raising your son on your own since his mother had passed. Since that time, and you're one of your best friends that you lost to cancer of 25 years of friendship. What has changed in you from those moments as a father and just as a human?
So much is, I don't know if it's changed or it's just highlighted. Do you know what I mean? Like it's taken things from maybe a place of knowing and observation to a place of deliberately living, right? Where I'm choosing to live in a powerful way because I recognize that there's an example I need to set for the person who's watching, for the person behind me, right? For both my kids, right? I want them to live a life of passion. I want them to live a life of joy and happiness. I want them to be positive, contributing members of society. Of course, I think all parents want that. But I also want them to live a life where they know that no matter what comes their way, that they can push through and they can make it, right? And I think the only way to do that is not by saying it, but how we live, how I choose to live, and what they can observe through my example. And hopefully, I'm setting an example for them that will help, will serve them throughout their life.
I absolutely believe that just in the short time that I know you. My father used to have a saying, "Don't tell me you love me, show me you love me." And words only go so far. So your actions, I think, speak directly to type of life that you're looking to lead and have been living, and going for it. Even against the obstacles, challenges, and things like that, or going through those obstacles and challenges that we were talking about before, right?
Yeah,
So
so much.
your purpose is bigger now with other people watching you.
That's right. And so much of that was what I saw my parents do, right? I saw the same example from my parents of hard work, discipline, that spirit to push forward and to make the best that they can of the lives that they have.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that with my family. We could talk about that together another time because this is all about you, my man. But in what ways, like I guess, in while these things have happened in your life, like how has the faith piece of it helped you move forward in life during times where a lot of people could have potentially fallen apart? How has that helped you?
You know, um, Trusting God with all of it. There's no way humanly that I think I could have just gotten through it without my faith. For me, like I often say to people, I don't know how people do it without faith because I couldn't, right? Um, when I sit back and I observe the things that I've been through and I see how God works, I'm filled with gratitude. I have lost a lot of people that were significant in my life. You mentioned my friend of 25 years and other mentors, my parents and uh, people I've known since I was 18 or younger. I have a childhood friend I've lost, my son's mom. Like it just, the list goes on and on. But yet there's always been provision. There's always been someone to stand in the gap and support me in those moments when I needed it the most. And I believe that's God looking out for me and saying, hey, trust me in this. It's not perfect. It may not look like you thought it was going to look, but you're going to be okay and things are going to be okay. And so for me, faith is everything. Is first and foremost. Foremost, I can't exist without it.
Yeah, that makes to me at least that makes total sense because I've always felt in my life that feeling of higher calling to make a bigger impact. And one of the parallels that you and I have is, I believe, one of my reasons for existing is to help other people on their journeys. And I think that that exists in a good amount of all of us. It just, I think, depends on whether or not it's activated inside of you. Like, I've always felt that deeper purpose to help other people. Part of the reason I created this podcast, yes, I definitely learn a lot myself, but I hope that even if it just impacts one person, like my running journey last year, I set out to run 1,000 miles, Carl, and I measured it, to make sure that I would hit that number at 83.3 miles a month. It's the number if you want to run 1,000 miles. But I had one person, very specifically, who caught on to running because of that and reached out to me, and I had no idea.
Wow.
Um, but to me, like, if that's the impact that I made and I changed that person's life through running, I've done a great job, and that's part of I believe my own purpose. So I'm very I resonate a lot with that with you, and I think that that comes from something bigger than ourselves that is implanted into us, and then
Yeah.
it's just trusting it and knowing that a knowingness of I'm going in the right direction because I'm making an impact in other people's lives.
And if you look for it, you'll get the confirmation you need. And I can tell you that because as a mental health coach, people come to session and they talk to me, oh, I lost my parent, oh, I lost my best friend, oh, this happened with my partner or whatever. And I'm able to relate to them in a different way or empathize with them because I understand that deep sense of loss. Sometimes they don't have the words, but I can articulate the words and go, yeah, that's exactly what I'm feeling. How did you know? I said, yeah, because I've been through it, right? And I'm here to tell you you're going to be okay. And for me, that's like confirmation, right? That what I went through was not just to go through, but it's meant to help other people.
Yeah, amen to that, man. And at the same time, it brings me to thinking about community and people as a whole and helping them. And you being a mental health coach and everything else that you teach through your experience, what does real community really look like, and how does it help people ultimately achieve their goals?
Teamwork makes the dream work. We don't accomplish things on our own. Every great achievement that I've made because I worked with people, right? Even in my martial arts schools, we talk about community. Strength is in unity, right? It's like one of the quotes that we use. And it's so important because you can be the leader of the community. You can be helping people, supporting them and everything else. But one day you're going to go through something too. And you'll be amazed how people will show up and support you because that's the way it is, right? It's together. We're all in this together, whether or not you believe that or not. We really are. And for all of us, to really succeed, it's going to take cooperation, right? Take a community of people to come together and to say, hey, it's time to make a change. And you think about all the great organizations out there and what they've done, the nonprofits. I get to sit on the board of Health Corps, right? And I think it was last year we served over 250,000 kids, in them to improve their mindset and their health, and by educating them in schools, right? So I strongly believe in community. As I build my companies, I look for a sense of community, and I look for people who really want to work together and make a powerful change in the world.
Yeah, you have to have the like-mindedness, because if it's not there, you're in the wrong group, or maybe people are in the wrong seats on the bus, right? Or maybe they shouldn't be on the bus at all.
Right. That's right. And so I'll share this with you because I think it's important as you're building your communities, as we think about the bigger vision that we have our goals, but we also have to have values, and we need to know that our values mesh. Right. And then we need to have boundaries. And there's an intersection between goals, boundaries, and values. And a lot of times I'll get people who come to session and we'll talk about values at a very deep level because two people can have the same values and see them entirely differently. So it's important when you start to talk about values that you break it down and say, okay, well, if I believe this, then that, right? Like if I believe respect is important or community is important, right? Or families, whatever the value is, then I will do what? How will I behave? How will I act? And understanding that between two people can make a huge difference. There's an example that I use from me. I was teaching overseas. I was teaching a life coaching class, and we were working on this idea of values. And I had these two girls that came up to the front of the room. They both said they valued honesty and respect, and their boyfriends were in the room. And I said, okay, you're at the beach with your boyfriend. It's a beautiful sunny day. A beautiful girl comes out of the water. How honest do you want him to be? And what would you consider respect? Well, two different answers. One girl said, "Well, if he respects me, he's going to keep his eyes on me." Right? He's like, "Oh, look." And the other one was like, "No, he can look, but he's got to tell me about it. We're going to have a whole conversation, a whole experience about it." So here you have two people who value the same things, but see it entirely differently. So the value conversation is incredibly important when you're building.
Yeah, and also, I wanna bring in culture. Something I learned from a business partner of ours, who's a former Navy SEAL. I won't say former, actually, you're always a Navy SEAL, right? But, he always talks about if you say you have a culture of accountability and you can't define the actions that make up that culture of accountability, you do not have that culture.
There you go.
So if you define having a culture of accountability as X, Y, and Z, but I define that culture of accountability as something different, we might have that, like you said, similar value on accountability, but different ways of getting.
That's right. And different ways could be okay, but sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't. It's not always in your best interest, right?
How would you define the difference between a mentor and a coach? You know, when we're talking about community, of course, there's obviously leaders within that community, and a lot of them are coaches and a lot of them are mentors. Do you think that there's a significant difference between the two?
Sure, a coach will never give you direct advice. A coach's job or coach's philosophy. I studied coaching with Barry Fowler, the head of Fowler International Academy of Coaching. Barry was the founder of Sylvan Learning Centers. I don't know if you knew that. And
Yeah, wow. No, I did not.
he says that Socrates was the first life coach. And Socrates, using the Socratic method, did what? How did he teach? He taught by asking questions, because that's how you know when somebody truly knows the answers or owns the answers. And as a life coach, we believe that the answers are inside of you, and it's my job to draw those answers out. Where a mentor may not have that approach. They may ask questions, but in most cases, the mentor's like providing information and guidance to help you to accomplish your goal or achieve what you're trying to achieve. So two different processes, maybe even the same result, but they just go about it differently. I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I was having that conversation recently and definitely wanted your opinion on it. Um, what would you say, like in your own life, like who's been the number one biggest mentor or coach in your life? Did it come from martial arts or was it external outside of that world?
Outside of my father,
I guess so. Is your father?
uh,
So would your father be that person for you?
yeah, my dad would definitely be somebody, but outside of my father, I've had some great, amazing mentors and coaches that I worked with. Like I said, Barry Fowler's one of them. Um, so many people, my martial arts instructors, of course, but more than anything, I would say God and His Word. You know, there's lots of opportunity to learn from people. God inspired people to speak to you differently, right? They speak a truth to you that you often don't hear, and sometimes we are even unaware of. However, that truth spoken in love can be very powerful and very transformative. And so I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah.
That's my perspective on.
Well, I was gonna say, like, what were the commonalities between them, and you just answered it, you know? And I absolutely love that. And then when we talk about coaching and mentoring or looking for a specific community, like, how does somebody, I guess, lead with value who wants to be part of a particular community or group when they might not be in it yet? Like, how can they get their, I guess, their proverbial foot in the door, uh, and lead with value first?
Ask how you can serve. I mean, is every leader in this world needs help in some way, shape, or form, right? Ask how you can serve. Be willing to show up and give. before asking, to receive. I think that's like one of the basic rules, right? As you give, you receive. I think for all of us who are leaders today, at one point we were servers, right? We were there in the back, helping, right? Like I didn't just become a martial arts instructor. I was a student, right? I was helping my instructor. I remember like, coming back from my travels and doing my thing and working underneath him, helping to teach kids classes, right? Is all a part of it, right? And I think we get to lead by being great followers. Don't miss that part of it, right? And when I got into business, I started from the bottom and worked my way up. I learned everything I could possibly learn. When I became a coach, I studied first and then I worked really hard to become a coach trainer under Barry Fowler, right? And then I started my coaching company. Then I started this or that. So don't be afraid to start from the bottom and to ask questions and to learn. But the most important thing is to serve, right? Because that's truly what we're here to do.
Yeah. I love that. Even on like the business coaching side for me, there's this horrible ABC that comes from the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, which is always be closing.
Oh, yeah.
And we flip that in our program where we talk about ABC, always be curious, always be creative,
Love that.
always be connecting. Like when you ask smart, relevant questions of somebody else, you're identifying to them that you genuinely care. Jay Abraham, who's a famous marketer, talks about it in the way of like, if you want to be perceived as interesting, you must first be genuinely interested.
That's right. Yeah.
So I
chance to work.
absolutely love that.
Amazing.
Yeah. I would say that, outside of that, when people are trying to change their behavior or lead themselves, right? Like let's take it outside of the community piece for a second. Why do you think that people hold on to maybe bad habits or patterns that they know are hurting them? Like let's just say smoking. What's like ultimately the first steps of letting go of those kinds of things so that way they can, move towards their goals.
If it's okay with you, I'd love to frame it through the lens of the 4 stages of emotional reconditioning, right?
Please.
I originally learned this from Dr. Aldo Pucci, and he called it the 4 stages of emotional education. And I understand why he said that. But from what I understand and from my thinking, and I guess from my martial arts background, I see it as conditioning because we condition our habits, we condition our emotions, right? So the first step is an awareness, and it's an awareness that something needs to change. So you got to ask yourself, well, what do I need to change? Right. And like, okay, yeah, I need to quit this habit or quit or change it. The second step is once you identify what needs to be changed is practice and repetition of the new idea and the new behavior. And this is really important. So when you're practicing mentally and physically because the mind always wants to be right. And an affirmation alone is not enough. The mind is looking for evidence, and the evidence is only seen through your behavior, right? Like if your behavior, if you're telling yourself, I'm not going to do something, and then you do it, well, you break trust with who? Yourself, and you create more self-doubt, right? However, when you have integrity with yourself and you keep your promise to yourself, what happens? You actually increase your confidence. You become more faithful or faith-filled for yourself, knowing that, hey, I can trust myself to do this, right? So practice and repetition, new idea, new behavior. Now, as you go about this process and you're practicing and you're repeating, you're going to run into something. So are you righty or lefty?
Kind of both. I'm a lefty for writing, and then I do everything else righty. No lie.
Okay.
But I'm really a lefty because like a
You're a
lot of
lefty.
my
All right,
control
hold up your
function,
right
Carl,
hand.
comes from my left hand.
All right, hold up your left hand and pretend that you had a pen in it. And for our audience at home, I want you to do the same. And now in script, what's your full name? First, middle, last.
Ronald Salvatore Marvo.
Perfect. Write it in script in the air and notice how that feels. Maybe not for you, but for most people to say awkward, strange, weird, uncomfortable, right? And some people have even put the pen down and said, I can't do this. And that feeling, that emotion is called cognitive emotive dissonance. And that's a strange, awkward feeling we get whenever we try to do something new. It's not actually a signal that what we're doing is wrong. It just feels weird. But this is why people give up. This is why people quit. This is why people say, I can't do it. Once we actually know it, we have a greater chance of actually succeeding. So now when I feel that, I say to myself, oh, this is good. This is cognitive emotive dissonance. Let me keep going. And when I keep going, I hit stage 3. And stage 3 is a stage of emotional wins. Like, it's the stage where, like, you've been working out and somebody goes, man, Rod, you look great. You've been into the gym? You go, yeah, I feel good. And you want more of that, right? Or maybe it's a diet. Hey, Rod, you've lost some weight? Yeah, I've
You
been on
gain that
that.
social recognition now.
God, it feels so good. You want more of it. And the more you get that, you keep going. And then you hit stage 4. And stage 4 is when it becomes a personal trait or a habit. And now the effort required to sustain is a lot less. You're over the hump. And this will help people actually succeed.
It's that tipping point, man. And I'm just thinking about while you're talking, like the times where I've gone through that in my life. And I'll use like jump rope, for example. I don't have to think about jumping rope.
Right.
You know, I don't have to think about, or speed bag. I don't have to think about hitting the bag.
Mhm.
I can listen to the speed bag and
Mhm.
hear the rhythm of it and know where it's going to be. But it became part of who I am. But you first, to your point, you have to be willing to be bad at it first and be on in that uncomfortable state, right?
Mhm.
Like for me to practice boxing lefty and hitting the bag lefty is
Uh-huh.
so funky in
Yeah.
comparison to righty.
Yeah.
Like it
Right.
just is. Even though I'm naturally a lefty dominant,
Mhm.
it's just awkward, but I've practiced it enough where like I know
That's
now I can
normal.
shift my feet and move into lefty stance in a way that's going to not get me injured in sparring and actually throw a good shot, you
That,
know? But that took getting caught a couple, why as you put, waffled a couple times. So I
that's
totally get that.
yeah. Yeah. So I think there's the understanding these things. I know when I've shared this with clients, it's made a big difference for them because they didn't understand behavioral change and how do I change behavior and get to where I'm trying to go. And so they're doing the right things, they're experiencing all the right things, but they just didn't know it. Right.
Yeah, and this is where I guess motivation falls short. It's like just that one piece of the puzzle. People are looking for the motivation to go and do something, and then when the motivation fades, they stop doing it, and discipline doesn't take over. So, like, how do people convert, I guess, that motivation into that discipline? Is it just going in and doing the uncomfortable thing, or is it more than that to you?
I think it's more than that. Self-discipline is doing what I know I should do without being reminded whether I like it or not. And it's embodying this whether I like it or not thing, right? It's also about being committed to your purpose. Purpose is your greatest motivation, right? So if you're not motivated, you got to ask yourself, is my purpose big enough? Right? If your purpose doesn't scare you, if you don't wake up in the morning going, oh my God, can I do this today? Right? Are you really being challenged?
Well, they're getting into I'm curious on this with you is like they might be comfortable in what they do and how they do it. Like, and I think about the folks in the world that work a 9 to 5 and feel so disconnected from their dreams or their purpose, they think it's out of reach. So like for those people, how would they go about doing that? Right? Because if they're just waking up and let's just say, they're doing the same thing every single day and they don't feel like it's making a big impact or their purpose is less than,
Yeah.
even if it's not the case, but they
Yeah.
believe that. So it's reality, as you know.
Right.
How do they, I guess, make that shift?
Redefine your values. Start with this, redefine your values and time block. I had a client who came to me and he says, I'm XYZ age and I feel very unfulfilled in my life. I said, terrific. I said, are you living from your values? He said, I don't know what you mean. I said, what's important? What matters to you? And so we actually did an exploration similar to what we were talking about before with the values, and he figured it out. And I said, great. Now, if I took a magnifying glass to your schedule, your day-to-day life, what would I notice? Would I observe you actually living from a place of your values or just kind of haphazardly living? And so the interesting part about this is he time blocks for work, but he wasn't time blocking for his personal life. I said, follow the same principle. If family's important to you, decide how many hours a week you want to spend developing that aspect of your life. If faith is important, same thing. If working out or health is important, same thing. And so as he started to fill out his calendar, he started noticing, man, I've got all this extra time. I could actually do this or do that. And now all of a sudden he moved from a place of like, 9 to 5, I'm in pain, I'll never get to choose it, to suddenly he's living according to his purpose. He's much more fulfilled. And now he's got a little side gig he started because he realized, well, I don't need to, do the whole thing. If I have this, this is enough for me. And then I'm happy and I feel fulfilled and I'm moving forward and I'm able to live a life closer to the dreams that I had. And so it's such little things, but they make a big difference.
Yeah, they're simple, quote unquote, but not easy.
No, but they're powerful.
Very, very powerful, because I think that people get so sucked into the time, like I don't have enough time, like that point you just made up. And I even take a 24-hour clock and I write out 1 through 24 for people. And I'm like, all right, when do you come into work? When do you leave work? What do you do after? And like I show them all these pockets. And sometimes, we got to do that for ourselves too, Carl, right? Like we're just as human as the people that we help. And sometimes we need to have that outside external force tell us like things, or give us those tips, tricks, tactics, techniques, whatever. I'm curious, in your life, Carl, how have you changed your own behavior through what you've learned through coaching and discipline as you've gotten older?
A ton. We go back to when I lost my friend. I actually went to a coach, because I felt lost. I at one point even thought about walking away from martial arts, because I felt like I couldn't do it without her. We were best friends. We spoke every day for 25 years. And she ran my business, like literally ran my business, like did books, spoke to the accountant, worked with attorneys, like it just allowed me the freedom to go make money, teach, travel, do my thing, like really just be the face and be, out there with people, right? Serve. And she ran everything else. So when I lost her, I was like, there was such a big uncertainty if I could continue to do this, right? It was like unknown to me, right? And so I found a coach and I ended up working with the coach, and the coach said something to me that was very, very powerful. He said, you have to find purpose in this. I'll never forget it. Right. And so when he told me I needed to find purpose, I was like, oh, what do you mean? He goes, well, everything happens in life for a reason, right? Everything happens in life for a purpose. And so what's your purpose? What do you think the purpose is in all this? So, I don't know. And then he said, okay, well, think about all the things that you said you were going to do. And maybe there's something there that you didn't accomplish. And I said, okay. And there was a book I'd been working on 10 years. Dip, travel. In less than 3 months, the book was done. The book went on to be an Amazon bestseller. The coach I worked with was Dave Meltzer, by the way. I don't know if you
Dave who?
Meltzer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard of Dave Meltzer. Wow. Okay.
Phenomenal guy.
Yeah, he really is. I love the way he strategizes things, and he just is he's a good human first.
He's a great human. And the strategy sessions that we did were very short. They were 15-minute sessions, and you pay good money to work with him, which is worth it, but he literally helped me tremendously during that time.
Yeah. And I think that, asking, like, it was such a full circle moment to the beginning of our conversation of just like asking for help and like going out to make sure that like, hey, if I have a problem I'm looking to solve, like who's best equipped to maybe help me do that? And then how do I serve them first in order to get the opportunity to work with them or work alongside them,
That's right.
or get help from them, whatever the case is.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's always somebody there willing to help. Right. And when we get the help, we have to be willing to listen.
Yeah, you got to be a good student. As you know from martial arts, and I know from boxing, like you just You have to be a good student, and no coach is going to want to work with you if they start realizing like this person isn't absorbing a damn thing I'm telling them.
That's right.
Oh, it's so funny, man. But
Yeah.
listen, Carl, you've been so gracious with your time today. I genuinely appreciate you being on the show. As we are getting ready to close out, I do have some a new segment I've been doing, which is like rapid fire underdog style questions. And I'd
Okay.
like to walk through those with you if you
Yeah,
don't mind.
please. Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Yeah. So first of all, like, how do you define what it means to be an underdog?
Well, I think for some people, not my definition, but a long time ago, I heard somebody say a loser is somebody who hasn't figured out how to win. And an underdog is just somebody who's facing challenges who hasn't figured out how to win, but eventually will because they are persistent.
Yeah, that level of persistence, man. It takes you from being an underdog to being successful and ultimately rising up to be the champ of your own life.
That's
What's
right.
one belief you had to unlearn in order to grow in your life?
Wow, that's a great question. And a tough one to think about at this stage because I'm really doing my best to live from a different place. But one belief I had to unlearn. Wow, that's a tough one for me. I don't know.
Yeah, it might be a little challenging for you because you've always in your life had a sense of purpose. So maybe there's things that along the way, uh, you had to kind of drop either a habit, a belief system, or anything like that in order to get to the next level.
There's definitely been some habits that have been dropped for sure, right? I think that choosing to be a certain way, right? Choosing how I respond to certain situations. Growing up at one point, I had a bad temper, right? So choosing to drop that has been a big thing, right? It allows me to approach things in a different way. And people will say to me, you're super calm, you're super patient, and I am. I have a long fuse now compared to growing up. Not so much.
Yeah, well, that's a super important thing that I've also worked on because I think that the anger piece sometimes can come from our environments that we grew up in early on, like as kids, and we have triggers that are subconscious triggers that we don't realize. And then as you get older, if you become like you have, and I've worked constantly and working on doing, is being the observer of my thoughts and my emotions.
Hmm.
So being emotionally aware. So you had to unlearn how to not be emotionally aware to
Yeah.
become emotionally aware. I I love that. Um, what do you say to someone who thinks that it's too late, they're too broken, or too far behind to change their life?
Yeah. It's never too late. Right? Like you're still here. You get to wake up every morning. You get another opportunity to do something. And there's a lot of people who didn't wake up today. So the fact that you're still here means you're still on a mission. Let's get up, soldier. We got work to do.
How has your definition of success changed in a way that it didn't mean to you earlier in life?
Well, for me, at that point in my younger years, I think success was about me winning the world championships. Now success is about living my purpose every day. And I recognize that living my purpose it's not about being on radio or being on TV or writing books or any of that, right? I get to live my purpose from any position I find myself in life because my purpose is really about inspiring people. So how can I be inspiring to somebody, whether I'm being a parent, a sibling, a friend, whatever, a martial arts instructor or a life coach, right? How can I be inspiring to people?
I absolutely love that, and it might tie into this question as well, which is what's one thing people often get wrong about achieving success?
That they can't do it. It's not possible. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard somebody say, I want to give up or quit, or I don't think I can. And the truth is you can, just find your way, find the information, the advice, find the people who will support you, get the right people around you to help you. You're still here. What will you do with the time that you have? You're still here, right? Look, I'm 57, but there's days I feel like I'm 22, right? And there's some days I wake up and I've got some aches and pains, and yeah, I feel 57.
Yeah, I feel that at 33, man. No,
You
I
know,
totally get
I'm
that.
here. Why not? Just keep going. What am I going to do? Right. I still have time. There's still something that God has me here to accomplish for some reason. Right. So I need to all focus on that.
I love that. So I guess on the daily habit piece is focusing on that. Would you say that's like the one daily habit that helps people stay grounded and in alignment with what they're looking to achieve? Is realize that you're here?
You're here. Keep your purpose in front of you. Know that you're here and somebody's watching you. Somebody needs your message. Somebody needs your voice, your encouragement, and somebody needs your example. So keep going, please.
I love that. Carl, what's as we close out here, what's one piece of actionable advice that you hope everyone takes away after hearing our conversation today?
That they're going to find whatever resonated with them from this conversation and they're going to take action with it. Right. More than anything, the messages here are not for everyone, but there are some messages that will resonate with you more than other people. And whatever piece you needed to hear, you needed to hear. That message was for you. So do what you can with that message. I have a mentor who used to say, don't let what you can do affect what you will do. So what will you do with that message? What step will you take today? Remember, it's like I said before, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So what's your single step today?
For me, a journey of 1,000 miles last year was measuring 83.3 miles a month. And then realizing that like 2 of the months when I ran 12 and 13, that wasn't good enough and I had to play catch up.
There you
But
go.
it just kind of starts with that first mile, man, that first step. And like just take that micro action that Carl is saying. Like it doesn't have to be this grandeur thing every day.
Mhm.
Because we're not always gonna be in that mental state essentially, right? But how do we get back to it? How do we stay present in just taking those little actions? Where can people, Carl, as we close out, where can people go to connect with you, experience more of your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I have two new radio shows starting, and you see the logos here in the back. We have Pray, Love, Hope Radio. It's a Christian radio station. And we have 888radionetwork.com as well, which is more of a life coaching, inspirational radio station. Both radio stations have inspirational music on it, as well as shows where we have powerful speakers and guests coming on, sharing their stories and their knowledge. I have a show about purpose called Your Purpose Path, driven by purpose. I have another show called Voices That Move. It's all about stories and people. And I hope you'll come on and be my guest. Uh, really about the power of stories. And everybody's got a story. And you may think that your story is not significant. Maybe you weren't like a world champion or this, that, or the other thing, but your story is significant and it will make a difference to somebody. So I invite all kinds of people from all walks of life to come on the show. You don't have to be a celebrity or an author or whatever. Doesn't matter. You mean everyday person. I still want to hear your story.
Well, like you mentioned before, we're all human and we all have purpose in our life. We all have our gifts. And at the end of the day, we're really not so different and we can all learn from each other. The world might try to separate us, but you and I, Carl, are very much on a similar path in terms of, and I'm just, a little behind you here in terms of time, but we're on a similar path to impact as many people as possible, or even if it's just that one that picks out that piece that really, really resonated with them and it helps them. I'm so thrilled and honored to be able to share the stories that allow that to happen. So I want to say thank you again, Carl, for being on Great American Underdog today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure being on the show, and I'm excited to hear from people and see what they got out of today's show. So please reach out.
Me too, man. You heard it here first from Sifu Karl Romain today on Great American Underdog, where we share stories of strength and success from real life underdogs. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.